Two guys, same job offer letter, same starting salary of $52,000, same signature, practically the same day. 24 years old, both of them, standing at the same starting line. 15 years later, one of them retires early. The other one is still Googling, how much do I actually need to retire at 2 a.m.? Same salary, same raises, same career, more or less. So what happened? Hey, I'm Jake, and I spend a weird amount of time studying why two people who look identical on paper end up in completely different financial universes. If you've ever felt behind even though you're doing everything right, stick around, because this one might sting a little before it helps. Let's call our two guys Marcus and Theo. Both were hired the same week at the same mid-sized company. Both make the same money. Both get the same 3% raise almost every year like clockwork. If you looked at their pay stubs side by side for the next 15 years, you would not be able to tell them apart. That's the whole point of this story. This isn't about who earned more. It's about something that happens in the first 90 days of a job that nobody warns you about. And it quietly decides who retires at 50 and who's still working at 65. Here's what happens in month 1. HR hands both of them a packet about the company retirement plan. Marcus glances at it, thinks, I'll figure this out once I'm settled, and tosses it in a drawer. Totally reasonable. He's got a new apartment, a new commute, and new coworkers to figure out. Retirement planning can wait until things calm down. Theo, for reasons even he couldn't fully explain, sits down that same week and fills it out. Picks a simple index fund, sets it to automatically pull 10% of every paycheck. Doesn't think about it again. Whew, that's it. That's the entire difference between these two men. One filled out a form in his first week. The other meant to and didn't for 4 years. Now, things calm down for Marcus. It just takes a little longer than expected. First, it's the apartment deposit. Then it's a car that needs a transmission. Then his buddy's bachelor party in Cabo, which, come on, you only get invited to those a handful of times in your life. Every single delay makes complete sense on its own. Nobody sits down and decides, I will not save for retirement. They just keep having a very good reason to start next month instead of this one. 4 years go by like this. Theo, meanwhile, hasn't thought about his retirement account in years. It's not a decision he makes daily. It's a decision he made once, and then the decision made itself, paycheck after paycheck, while he was busy living his actual life. Here's where it gets interesting, because on paper, Marcus hasn't lost anything. He hasn't spent money he didn't have. He hasn't gone into debt. He's just been a normal 20-something. And that's exactly why this trap is so effective. It doesn't feel like a mistake while it's happening. It feels like nothing at all. So let's do the math, because this is the part that should genuinely bother you. At year 4, Marcus finally gets serious. He starts putting away the same 10% that Theo's been saving the whole time. Same salary, same contribution rate, same investment, same market returns. From this point forward, they are doing the same thing. If Marcus had started on day 1 like Theo, by year 15, at a reasonable long-run market return, he'd be sitting on somewhere around $175,000. Instead, because he started 4 years late, he ends up around $120,000. That's a $55,000 gap. For 4 years. Not 4 years of not saving forever. 4 years of delay, followed by over a decade of doing everything the same. And here's the part that actually makes people angry when they hear it. Marcus didn't lose $55,000. He lost the chance for that money to compound for 4 extra years at the very beginning, when compounding has the most time to work. Losing $1 today doesn't cost you $1. It costs you every single dollar that dollar would have become. Think about it like planting a tree. If Theo plants his seed on day 1, by year 15, he's got a tree that's been growing for 15 years. Marcus plants the identical seed, same soil, same care, 4 years later. He doesn't just have a slightly smaller tree. He's missing 4 entire years of a growth curve that gets steeper the longer it runs. You cannot buy back those 4 years at any price, at any interest rate, with any amount of extra effort later. They're just gone. And this is the part nobody in personal finance wants to say out loud because it feels unfair, but it's true. The first few years of investing matter more than almost any other years that follow. Not because you're contributing more, you're contributing the same amount later. It's because compounding needs runway, and runway can only be built at the start. Now, before you go feel bad about your own drawer full of unopened HR packets, let me argue the other side. Because Marcus's 4 years weren't wasted. That transmission got fixed. The bachelor party in Cabo is a story he still tells. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't irresponsible. He was a normal person figuring out an unfamiliar new life. And there is real value in not white-knuckling every dollar at 24 just to optimize a number that won't matter for another 40 years. Nobody looks back on their 20s and wishes they'd enjoyed life less. The problem was never that Marcus lived a little. The problem is that "I'll get to it later" and "I already started, just at a small amount" are two completely different sentences, and most people confuse them. Theo didn't sacrifice anything to fill out that form. He didn't skip Cabo. He didn't eat rice and beans for 4 years. He just automated 10% of a paycheck he hadn't even gotten used to spending yet, and then lived a completely normal life on the rest. That's the actual secret hiding in this whole story, and it's almost disappointingly simple. Theo never felt like he was sacrificing, because he set the whole thing up before he had a chance to get attached to that money. Marcus felt like he was making a reasonable choice to wait, because by the time he thought about starting, that money already had a home in his checking account, and moving it felt like a loss instead of a decision. This is why the 4-year gap isn't really about discipline at all. It's about sequencing. Start before the money has a personality, before it has a name like vacation fund or just-in-case money. Because once it does, moving it feels like giving something up, even if you never would have missed it in the first place. So here's where Marcus and Theo end up. Same salary the whole way through, same raises, same job, more or less, same effort from year 4 onward, and a $55,000 gap standing between them by year 15, caused entirely by what each of them did in their very first few months at work, before either of them had any idea it would matter this much. Stretch this out to a full career instead of just 15 years, and that gap doesn't stay at 55,000. It widens because the 4 years Marcus lost sat at the very beginning of the curve, the part doing the most work for the longest time. Run it out another 20 years, and you're not looking at a gap of tens of thousands anymore. You're looking at a gap that decides whether one of them retires at 58 and the other is still working at 68, for the same effort, the same salary, the same life. So if there's one thing worth doing today, not next month, not once things calm down, it's this. Find whatever the Theo version of that HR form is in your life right now. The thing you've been meaning to set up once you're settled. Set it up today, before it has a name, before it has a personality, before "I'll get to it later" quietly turns into 4 years. Because Marcus and Theo didn't retire 15 years apart because one of them was smarter, or luckier, or made more money. They retired 15 years apart because one of them made a 5-minute decision in his first week at work, and the other one meant to.